Imagine a scale, not of iron and wood, but of pure celestial gold. On one side, a feather plucked from the wing of Ma'at, goddess of truth and cosmic order. On the other side, your heart. Not the organ that pumps blood, but the seat of your soul, the repository of every deed, every thought, every intention you've ever held. This is the scene, the ritual, the reckoning that awaits us all in the Hall of Two Truths, a realm beyond the veil, presided over by Anubis, the jackal-headed god of embalming and the guardian of the afterlife. But this is not merely a story of ancient Egypt, a dusty relic of forgotten gods and pharaohs. This is a mirror reflecting our own lives, our own choices, our own desperate attempts to navigate the treacherous currents of morality. For even in our secular scientific age, the question remains, how are we judged? What measures our worth? And what happens when the scales tip against us? We live in a world obsessed with judgment. Social media platforms have become virtual courtrooms where opinions are rendered with swift and often merciless finality. Political discourse is a battlefield of accusations and condemnations. Even within ourselves, we wage a constant war of self-criticism, dissecting our actions, questioning our motives, and perpetually falling short of some unattainable ideal. But what if the true measure of a life is not found in the fleeting judgments of others, or even in our own harsh self-assessments? What if the scales of justice are far more nuanced, far more forgiving than we imagine? What if Anubis, the grim ferryman of souls, is not merely a judge, but a guide, leading us through the labyrinth of our own hearts, helping us to understand the weight of our choices? This is not a theological treatise, nor a historical lecture. It is a journey into the heart of the human condition, using the myth of Anubis as a lens through which to examine our own moral compass. We will delve into the ancient Egyptian concept of Ma'at, the cosmic principle of truth, balance, and justice, and how it shaped their understanding of the afterlife. We will explore the role of Anubis, not just as a god of death, but as a psychopomp, a guide who escorts souls through the perilous journey into the next world. But more importantly, we will examine how these ancient beliefs resonate with our modern sensibilities. How can the myth of the weighing of the heart help us to navigate the complex ethical dilemmas of our own time? How can we find balance in a world that seems to constantly teeter on the brink of chaos? And how can we cultivate a sense of inner peace, knowing that our actions will ultimately be weighed, not by some external authority, but by the very essence of our own being? We will consider the philosophical insights of Immanuel Kant, whose categorical imperative offers a framework for ethical decision-making that transcends cultural boundaries. We will explore the psychological underpinnings of guilt, shame, and remorse, and how these emotions can either paralyze us or propel us towards growth and self-acceptance. And we will ultimately ask ourselves, what does it truly mean to live a good life? This is not a quest for easy answers or simplistic solutions. It is an invitation to grapple with the fundamental questions of human existence, to confront our own imperfections, and to strive towards a more authentic and meaningful way of being. For in the end, the scales of Anubis are not just a symbol of judgment, but a symbol of transformation, a reminder that even in the face of death, there is always the possibility of rebirth, of renewal, of a heart made lighter by the weight of wisdom and compassion. The journey begins now, into the shadows of the afterlife and into the depths of our own souls. Let us now turn our gaze toward the dramatis personae of this celestial trial, the gods and mortals who populate the myth and, by extension, our own moral theater. Anubis, of course, stands as the central figure, the master of ceremonies in the Hall of Two Truths. But he is not alone. He is surrounded by a pantheon of deities, each representing a different aspect of the cosmic order, and each playing a crucial role in the judgment of the soul. Thoth, the ibis-headed god of wisdom and writing, stands beside Anubis, recording the proceedings with meticulous accuracy. His presence underscores the importance of truth and knowledge in the afterlife. He is the scribe of the gods, the keeper of records, ensuring that every detail is accounted for. Consider him the ultimate auditor, whose pen never misses a single infraction. Then there is Ammit, the devourer of souls, a fearsome creature with the head of a crocodile, the torso of a lion, and the hindquarters of a hippopotamus. She represents the ultimate consequence of a failed judgment, the annihilation of the soul, its dissolution into the primordial chaos from which it came. She is the embodiment of eternal oblivion, a stark reminder of the stakes involved. However, these divine figures are not merely abstract symbols. They are reflections of the forces that shape our own lives, the inner voices that guide and torment us, the conflicting impulses that drive our actions. Anubis in this light can be seen as the embodiment of our conscience, the inner judge who weighs our deeds and holds us accountable. Thoth represents our capacity for reason and discernment, our ability to analyze our actions and understand their consequences. And Ammit embodies our deepest fears, the dread of failure, the terror of oblivion. But what of the mortals who stand before Anubis, the souls awaiting judgment? They are not simply passive recipients of divine justice. They are active participants in the process, offering their own accounts of their lives, pleading their cases, attempting to justify their actions. They are us, stripped bare of our earthly possessions, our social status, our physical bodies, left only with the sum total of our deeds. Think about the whistleblower who exposes corporate malfeasance, risking their career and reputation for the sake of truth. Or the caregiver who dedicates their life to tending to a loved one with a debilitating illness, sacrificing their own needs and desires. Or even the everyday acts of kindness and compassion that often go unnoticed, the small gestures of generosity that make the world a slightly better place. Conversely, we also see the shadow side of humanity reflected in those who fail the test. The corrupt politician who abuses their power for personal gain. The ruthless business executive who prioritizes profit over people. The envious neighbor who spreads malicious gossip to undermine their rival. These are the souls whose hearts are heavy with deceit, greed, and malice, whose actions have left a trail of destruction in their wake. Now, contemplate how this applies when you face a moral quandary. Do you choose the path of integrity even when it is difficult and unpopular? Or do you succumb to temptation, prioritizing your own self-interest over the well-being of others? The choices we make in life, no matter how small or insignificant they may seem, ultimately shape the weight of our hearts, determining our fate in the hall of two truths. The gods and mortals are not just characters in a myth, they are archetypes of the human experience, reflecting the eternal struggle between good and evil, truth and falsehood, compassion and cruelty. Consider now the crucible of conflict, the trials and tribulations that shape the soul and ultimately determine its fate in the weighing of the heart. It is not enough to simply exist. We must be tested, challenged, and forced to confront our own limitations. It is through these struggles that we forge our character and reveal our true nature. The ancient Egyptians believed that the afterlife was a perilous journey, fraught with obstacles and dangers. The deceased had to navigate a treacherous landscape, battling monstrous creatures and overcoming magical traps. These challenges were not merely physical, they were also spiritual, designed to purify the soul and prepare it for its final judgment. Similarly, our own lives are filled with trials and tribulations. We face setbacks in our careers, struggles in our relationships, and challenges to our health. We experience moments of doubt, fear, and despair. These experiences can either break us or make us stronger, depending on how we respond to them. For instance, imagine a young artist who pours their heart and soul into their work, only to face rejection after rejection. They could give up, succumbing to discouragement and self-doubt, or they could use these rejections as fuel, learning from their mistakes, honing their skills, and persevering until they achieve their dreams. Or consider the entrepreneur who invests their life savings into a new venture only to see it fail. They could be consumed by bitterness and resentment, blaming others for their misfortune. Or they could analyze their failures, identify what went wrong, and use that knowledge to build a more successful business in the future. In addition to these external challenges, we also face internal conflicts, the battles that rage within our own minds and hearts. We struggle with our own imperfections, our own weaknesses, our own dark impulses. We grapple with questions of identity, purpose, and meaning. The myth of Anubis and the weighing of the heart reminds us that these conflicts are not something to be avoided or suppressed. They are an essential part of the human experience, a necessary catalyst for growth and transformation. It is through confronting our own inner demons that we can truly understand ourselves and develop the capacity for compassion, empathy, and forgiveness. Rather than viewing these trials as punishments or obstacles, we can reframe them as opportunities for growth and self-discovery. Each challenge we overcome, each mistake we learn from, each act of kindness we perform adds weight to the positive side of the scale, bringing us closer to a lighter heart and a more fulfilling existence. Therefore, when you encounter adversity, remember the journey through the Egyptian underworld. Don't shy away from the challenges, but embrace them as opportunities to test your mettle and refine your character. For it is through these trials that we ultimately prove our worth and earn our place in the hall of two truths, not as perfect beings, but as imperfect humans who have striven to live a life of meaning and purpose. Let us now examine the pivotal moment, the apex of this celestial drama, the actual weighing of the heart. This is not merely a procedural step, but a profound revelation, a moment of truth that exposes the very essence of the soul. It is the culmination of a lifetime of choices, actions, and intentions, distilled into a single decisive judgment. The feather of Ma'at, representing truth, justice, and cosmic order, serves as the standard against which the heart is measured. If the heart is lighter than the feather, it signifies a life lived in accordance with Ma'at, a life of harmony, balance, and righteousness. The soul is then granted passage into the field of reeds, a paradise of eternal bliss. However, if the heart is heavier than the feather, it indicates a life burdened by sin, deceit, and negativity. The soul is deemed unworthy and is devoured by Amit, ceasing to exist in any meaningful way. This is not simply a punishment. It is a consequence of a life lived out of alignment with the natural order. The turning point lies not just in the outcome, but in the process itself. The soul is given the opportunity to speak, to defend itself, to offer explanations for its actions. This is a crucial element of the myth, highlighting the importance of self-reflection and accountability. Even in the face of judgment, there is a chance for redemption, a chance to learn from one's mistakes and to strive for a better future. Consider, as an illustration, a doctor who makes a mistake during surgery, resulting in the death of a patient. The doctor could attempt to cover up the error, fearing the consequences of admitting responsibility. However, if the doctor chooses to be honest, to acknowledge their mistake, and to learn from it, they may be able to prevent similar errors in the future, ultimately saving lives. Or picture a politician who is caught in a scandal, accused of corruption and abuse of power. The politician could deny the allegations, attempting to deflect blame and protect their reputation. However, if the politician chooses to take responsibility for their actions, to apologize to the public, and to make amends for their wrongdoing, they may be able to regain the trust of the people and continue to serve in a meaningful way. The weighing of the heart is not a simple binary decision, a pass or fail test. It is a complex and nuanced evaluation, taking into account the totality of a person's life, their motivations, their intentions, and their impact on the world around them. It is a reminder that our actions have consequences, not only for ourselves, but for others as well. Now, contemplate how this applies when you are faced with a difficult decision. Do you choose the easy path, the one that requires the least effort and carries the least risk? Or do you choose the right path, the one that aligns with your values and promotes the well-being of others, even if it is more challenging and requires greater sacrifice? The choices we make in these crucial moments shape the weight of our hearts and determine our ultimate destiny. The turning point is not just about avoiding punishment, but about embracing responsibility, learning from our mistakes, and striving to live a life of purpose and integrity. Let's now delve into the symbolic resonance of this ancient ritual, unpacking the deeper layers of meaning embedded within the myth of Anubis and the weighing of the heart. It's not merely a tale of divine judgment, but a profound allegory for the human condition, a reflection of our deepest fears, hopes, and aspirations. The heart itself, as the seat of consciousness, emotion, and intention, represents the totality of our being. It is the repository of our memories, our desires, and our moral compass. Weighing the heart, therefore, is not just about assessing our actions, but about evaluating the very essence of who we are. The feather of Maat symbolizes truth, justice, and cosmic order. It is the unwavering standard against which all actions are measured. It represents the ideal of a life lived in harmony with the universe, a life guided by principles of integrity, compassion, and righteousness. The act of weighing suggests a quest for balance, a striving for equilibrium between opposing forces. It reflects the ongoing tension between good and evil, selfishness and selflessness, truth and falsehood. It is a reminder that life is a constant process of negotiation, a delicate dance between conflicting impulses. Additionally, consider the role of Ammit, the devourer of souls. She embodies the ultimate consequence of a life lived out of alignment with Ma'at, the annihilation of the self. She represents the fear of oblivion, the dread of meaninglessness. However, she also serves as a powerful deterrent, a reminder of the stakes involved in our moral choices. From a psychological perspective, the weighing of the heart can be seen as a metaphor for the process of self-evaluation. We all engage in this process, consciously or unconsciously, assessing our actions, judging our motives, and striving to live up to our own ideals. The myth of Anubis provides a framework for this process, offering a set of values and principles to guide our self-reflection. Moreover, the myth speaks to our innate desire for justice. We all crave a sense of fairness, a belief that good deeds will be rewarded and bad deeds will be punished. The weighing of the heart provides a symbolic representation of this desire, offering a vision of a world where ultimate justice prevails. Now consider how this applies when you are grappling with feelings of guilt, shame, or remorse. These emotions are often a sign that we have acted in a way that is inconsistent with our values, that we have fallen short of our own ideals. The myth of Anubis reminds us that these feelings are not necessarily a bad thing. They can serve as a catalyst for change, motivating us to make amends for our mistakes and to strive for a better future. The symbolic meaning of the weighing of the heart extends beyond the individual level. It also speaks to the collective responsibility we have to create a just and equitable society. By striving to live in accordance with Ma'at, by promoting truth, justice, and compassion in our communities, we can contribute to a world where the scales of justice are balanced for all. Finally, let's consider the enduring resonance of this ancient myth, the echoes of Anubis and the weighing of the heart that continue to reverberate in our modern world. Though millennia separate us from the ancient Egyptians, the fundamental questions they grappled with, what constitutes a good life, how are we judged, and what is the ultimate fate of the soul, remain as relevant today as they were then. The concept of moral judgment, though often secularized, persists in our legal systems, our social norms, and our individual consciences. We establish codes of conduct, we enforce laws, and we hold ourselves and others accountable for our actions. The scales of Anubis, in a sense, have been transformed into the scales of justice, wielded by courts and juries, but the underlying principle remains the same. Actions have consequences. Moreover, the myth offers a profound perspective on the nature of self-reflection. In an age of relentless self-promotion and external validation, The weighing of the heart reminds us of the importance of inward examination. It encourages us to confront our own imperfections, to acknowledge our mistakes, and to strive for continuous improvement. Consider the rise of mindfulness practices and self-help movements, all aimed at cultivating greater self-awareness and emotional intelligence. These practices, in many ways, are modern-day equivalents of the ancient Egyptian quest for a lighter heart. They encourage us to examine our thoughts, feelings, and behaviors, to identify patterns that are detrimental to our well-being, and to develop strategies for living a more authentic and fulfilling life. Additionally, the myth speaks to our universal yearning for meaning and purpose. We all seek to understand our place in the world, to make a contribution that extends beyond our own individual lives. The weighing of the heart suggests that our actions have lasting significance, that they contribute to a larger cosmic order. Now, consider how this applies when you are faced with existential questions about the meaning of life. The myth of Anubis offers no easy answers, but it does provide a framework for grappling with these questions. It suggests that the meaning of life is not something to be discovered, but something to be created through our actions, our choices, and our commitment to living a life of purpose and integrity. The echo of the myth also resonates in our artistic expressions, our literature, our films, and our music. We continue to be fascinated by stories of judgment, redemption, and the afterlife. These stories reflect our enduring desire to understand the mysteries of existence and to find solace in the face of mortality. The myth of Anubis and the weighing of the heart is not just a relic of the past. It is a living testament to the enduring power of myth to illuminate the human condition. It is a reminder that the quest for a lighter heart is a lifelong journey, a journey that requires courage, compassion, and an unwavering commitment to truth and justice. As you navigate the complexities of modern life, may you always strive to keep your own scales balanced, and may the echoes of Anubis guide you on your path. As we draw to a close, let us contemplate the timeless question that the myth of Anubis poses. When are our actions truly judged? Is it in the grand theater of the afterlife before a pantheon of gods? Or is it in the quiet moments of our daily lives when we confront our own consciences? The answer, perhaps, lies in a synthesis of both. The ancient Egyptians believed in a literal weighing of the heart after death, a final reckoning that determined the fate of the soul. While we may not subscribe to the same literal interpretation, we can recognize the symbolic power of this belief. It serves as a potent reminder that our actions have consequences, that our choices matter, and that we are ultimately responsible for the lives we lead. Yet judgment is not simply a future event, something that awaits us after death. It is an ongoing process, a constant evaluation of our actions and intentions. We are judged by our peers, our communities, and most importantly, by ourselves. These judgments shape our self-esteem, our relationships, and our overall sense of well-being. Consider, for instance, the experience of receiving feedback at work. A performance review, whether positive or negative, provides an opportunity to reflect on our contributions and to identify areas for improvement. This feedback, in essence, is a form of judgment, a weighing of our professional heart, or reflect on the dynamics of social interactions. We constantly evaluate the behavior of others, forming opinions about their character and their trustworthiness. These judgments influence our decisions about who to befriend, who to collaborate with, and who to avoid. In this sense, we are all judges, constantly weighing the hearts of those around us. But perhaps the most important form of judgment is the one we inflict upon ourselves. Our inner critic can be harsh and unforgiving, constantly reminding us of our flaws and our failures. Learning to cultivate self-compassion, to treat ourselves with kindness and understanding, is essential for maintaining a healthy sense of self-worth. Now, consider how this applies when you are struggling with self-doubt or feelings of inadequacy. The myth of Anubis reminds us that we are all imperfect, that we all make mistakes. The key is not to dwell on our failures, but to learn from them, to forgive ourselves, and to strive to do better in the future. The myth of Anubis, therefore, is not just a story about death and the afterlife. It is a story about life, about the choices we make, the values we embrace, and the kind of person we strive to become. It is a reminder that our actions are constantly being weighed, not just by some external authority, but by the very essence of our own being. As you journey through life, may you always remember the scales of Anubis, not as a symbol of fear and judgment, but as a symbol of hope and transformation. May you strive to live a life of purpose, integrity, and compassion, and may your heart always be lighter than the feather of Mayat. The myth lives on, a timeless reminder of the enduring power of choice and the eternal quest for a balanced soul. In summation, let's reflect upon how this ancient narrative subtly intertwines with the ethical framework proposed by Immanuel Kant, specifically his concept of the categorical imperative. While separated by millennia and distinct cultural contexts, both offer profound insights into the nature of moral action and judgment. Kant's categorical imperative, in its various formulations, essentially posits that we should act only according to principles that we could will to become universal laws. That is, we should only engage in actions that we believe would be acceptable if everyone were to act in the same way. This stands in intriguing parallel to the Egyptian concept of Ma'at, the cosmic order that demands balance, truth, and justice. The weighing of the heart, in this context, can be interpreted as a symbolic representation of the categorical imperative in action. The feather of Ma'at represents the universal moral law, the standard against which all actions are measured. A heart lighter than the feather signifies a life lived in accordance with this universal law, a life of integrity and righteousness. Contrastingly, a heart heavier than the feather suggests a life lived in violation of this universal law, a life marked by selfishness, deceit, and injustice. In Kantian terms, this would represent actions guided by maxims that could not be universalized without creating contradiction or undermining the very fabric of society. To illustrate, consider the act of lying. Kant argued that lying is always morally wrong, even if it seems to produce a beneficial outcome in a particular situation. If everyone were to lie, he reasoned, trust would break down, communication would become impossible, and society would collapse. The weighing of the heart, in this context, can be seen as a symbolic condemnation of lying, a recognition that deceitful actions ultimately weigh down the soul. Or contemplate the concept of promise-keeping. Kant argued that we have a moral duty to keep our promises, even when it is inconvenient or disadvantageous to do so. If everyone were to break their promises, he reasoned, contracts would become meaningless, and cooperation would be impossible. The weighing of the heart, in this context, can be interpreted as a symbolic endorsement of promise-keeping, a recognition that fulfilling our obligations strengthens the bonds of society. Now consider how this applies when you are faced with an ethical dilemma. Ask yourself, what if everyone were to act in this way? Would the outcome be beneficial or detrimental to society as a whole? If the answer is detrimental, then the action is likely morally wrong, regardless of its immediate consequences. The myth of Anubis and the categorical imperative, though distinct in their origins and their expression, both offer a powerful framework for ethical decision-making. They remind us that our actions have consequences, not only for ourselves, but for others as well, and that we have a moral obligation to act in accordance with principles that promote truth, justice, and the well-being of all. The scales of Anubis in this light become a symbol of our shared responsibility to create a more just and equitable world. A world where the weight of our collective hearts is lighter than the feather of Ma'at. Reflecting on this journey so far, we find ourselves standing at a unique vantage point, overlooking a landscape sculpted by millennia of human striving and ethical inquiry. The myth of Anubis, initially appearing as a distant echo from ancient Egypt, has gradually revealed itself as a resonant chord within our own contemporary symphony of moral experience. We've traversed the Hall of Two Truths, not as passive observers, but as active participants in a timeless drama of judgment and consequence. We've encountered the gods and mortals not as mere figures of legend, but as archetypes of the human condition, reflecting the conflicting forces that shape our choices and determine our destinies. We've navigated the treacherous currents of conflict, recognizing that trials and tribulations are not simply obstacles to be avoided, but essential catalysts for growth and transformation. We've witnessed the pivotal moment of the weighing of the heart, understanding that judgment is not merely a future event, but an ongoing process of self-evaluation and accountability. We've unpacked the symbolic richness of the myth, discovering that the heart, the feather, and the devourer of souls are not just objects of ancient belief, but powerful metaphors for the complexities of human consciousness and the enduring quest for meaning. We've explored the echoes of the myth in our modern world, recognizing that the questions of ethical action and moral judgment continue to resonate in our legal systems, our social norms, and our individual consciences. Drawing these strands together, we see the myth of Anubis as more than just a story. It's a mirror reflecting our own moral landscape. It illuminates the contours of our inner lives, revealing the values we hold dear, the fears we harbor, and the aspirations that drive us forward. It challenges us to confront our own imperfections, to acknowledge our mistakes, and to strive for continuous improvement. The scales of Anubis, then, are not just a symbol of divine judgment, but a call to action, an invitation to live a life of purpose, integrity, and compassion. They remind us that our choices matter, that our actions have consequences, and that we are ultimately responsible for the weight of our own hearts. As we pivot towards the final reflection, consider the cumulative effect of these insights. We've not merely analyzed an ancient myth, we've engaged in a profound exploration of the human condition, a journey into the heart of what it means to live a good life. The path forward becomes clearer, not as a set of prescribed rules or easy answers, but as a continuous process of self-discovery, ethical inquiry, and compassionate action. The scales await. In the final reckoning, the myth of Anubis and the weighing of the heart offers us not a blueprint for avoiding divine retribution, but a compass for navigating the complexities of human existence. It whispers a truth that transcends the sands of time and the boundaries of culture, that the true measure of a life is not found in external accolades or fleeting pleasures, but in the enduring weight of our actions, the quiet echoes of our choices. The scales of Anubis, in their stark simplicity, present us with a profound challenge: to live consciously, to act with intention, and to weigh the consequences of our decisions before they are etched into the fabric of our souls. It is a call to cultivate a moral awareness that permeates every aspect of our lives, from the grandest acts of heroism to the smallest gestures of kindness. This is not a burden to be borne with grim resignation, but an opportunity to be embraced with joyful determination. For in the act of striving towards a lighter heart, we discover a deeper connection to ourselves, to others, and to the very essence of what it means to be human. We find meaning not in avoiding judgment, but in embracing the responsibility that comes with freedom of choice. The journey through the hall of two truths is not a solitary one. We are surrounded by the spirits of those who have come before us, by the wisdom of the ages, and by the unwavering presence of our own consciences. We are guided by the principles of Ma'at, by the ideals of truth, justice, and compassion. The true practice begins now, not in the distant realm of the afterlife, but in the present moment, in the choices we make each and every day. It begins with a commitment to honesty, to integrity, and to treating others with respect and empathy. It begins with a willingness to confront our own imperfections, to acknowledge our mistakes, and to strive for continuous growth. As you step forward, remember the feather of Ma'at, not as a symbol of unattainable perfection, but as a beacon of hope, a reminder that even the smallest acts of kindness can tip the scales towards a lighter, more fulfilling existence. Let the myth of Anubis be not a source of fear, but a source of inspiration, a call to live a life worthy of remembrance, a life that leaves the world a little brighter a little more just, and a little more compassionate. For in the end, the weight of our hearts is not just a measure of our past, but a testament to the enduring power of our potential.